You are speaking your reality into existence right now, and you don't even know it. Every word that passes through your awareness, every internal narrative you've accepted as truth, every casual comment you make about your life. You think you're just describing what you see, but here's what no one tells you. You're actually programming what you'll experience next. The voice in your head isn't neutral. It's not some passive observer simply reporting on reality like a news anchor describing the weather. That voice is quantum creative force dressed up as commentary, and it's been shaping your entire experience without your conscious participation. Right now, as you listen to these words, there's a stream of commentary running beneath your conscious awareness. Maybe it's evaluating whether this makes sense. Maybe it's connecting these ideas to your past experiences. Maybe it's already planning how you'll use this information. This internal narrator has been your constant companion since childhood, so familiar that you've stopped questioning its authority or recognizing its immense creative power. But what if I told you that this voice isn't reporting on your reality? It's actively constructing it. What if every thought pattern, every story you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible, every habitual way you frame your experiences is actually a quantum instruction set, programming the field of infinite possibility to organize specific experiences around you? This isn't metaphorical. This isn't wishful thinking. This is the deepest revelation that quantum physics has offered to human consciousness. The observer doesn't just witness reality. The observer participates in determining which reality manifests from the infinite field of potential. Most people live inside a feedback loop they can't see. They observe their circumstances, narrate those circumstances through their habitual patterns of thought and speech, and then wonder why those same circumstances keep showing up with such predictable consistency. What they don't realize is that the observer and the observed are not separate things. They are two aspects of the same creative process, locked in a dance so intimate that changing one immediately transforms the other. But here's where everything shifts. When you understand that your observational voice isn't describing reality, it's creating it, then you suddenly have access to the most sophisticated manifestation technology that has ever existed. Your own awareness, wielded with precision and intention. This is about more than positive thinking or affirmations. This is about recognizing that consciousness itself is participatory, that the quantum field responds not just to your intentions, but to the very quality of your observational presence. The way you witness your life is the way your life unfolds. Let me take you into the mechanics of this mystery. Every moment of your day, you are conducting an ongoing internal conversation. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's a stream of commentary running through your awareness. Maybe it's evaluating what I'm saying. Maybe it's planning what you'll do later. Maybe it's reviewing something that happened earlier. This is what we call the observer voice, and it has been your constant companion for so long that you've stopped noticing it's there. Think about this morning when you first woke up. Before you even opened your eyes, your observer voice was already active, already framing the day ahead. Another Monday, it might have said, or I'm already tired, or I hope today goes better than yesterday. These weren't neutral observations. They were quantum programming instructions, setting the vibrational frequency for everything that would unfold. Your observer voice operates like a sophisticated broadcasting system, constantly transmitting signals into the quantum field. But here's what makes this extraordinary. Most people have never realized they have conscious control over what gets broadcast. They've inherited observational patterns from family, culture, past experiences, trauma responses, and societal conditioning, and they just keep transmitting the same frequencies over and over, wondering why their life feels like the same song on repeat. But quantum physics has revealed something extraordinary about the role of observation in reality creation. The famous double-slit experiment showed us that particles exist in a state of infinite possibility until they are observed, and the very act of observation collapses that infinite field into specific, measurable reality. The observer doesn't just witness reality. The observer participates in determining which reality comes into being. Your internal voice is your quantum observational instrument. Every thought you think, every story you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible, every way you frame your experiences, these aren't neutral activities. They are acts of quantum selection, choosing which version of reality you'll experience from the infinite field of what could be. Think about this. When you wake up tomorrow morning and your observer voice automatically starts running its familiar programs. Another difficult day. I'm always struggling with this. Things never work out the way I want. You think you're just acknowledging reality. But what's actually happening is that you're tuning your consciousness to the frequencies that match those statements. You're telling the quantum field which experiences to select from the infinite menu of possibilities. Your observer voice is like a radio dial, constantly scanning and selecting which station to tune into. Most people have never realized they have conscious control over this dial. They've inherited observational patterns from family, culture, past experiences, and they just keep playing the same stations over and over, wondering why their life feels like the same song on repeat. Consider how this plays out in practical terms. When you walk into a room full of people, your observer voice immediately begins its scanning process. These people seem unfriendly, it might assess. Or, I don't belong here. Or, everyone else looks more confident than I feel. Each of these observations isn't just internal commentary. It's quantum programming that influences how others respond to you. What opportunities become visible? What conversations become possible? If your observer voice consistently scans for evidence of rejection, it will tune your nervous system to detect micro-expressions and body language that confirm rejection, even when neutral or positive signals are equally present. This creates a self-reinforcing loop where your expectation of rejection actually influences your behavior in ways that increase the likelihood of experiencing rejection. But here's the quantum principle that changes everything. These patterns aren't fixed. Your observer voice isn't determined by your genetics or your past or your personality type. It's a skill that can be refined, an instrument that can be tuned, a capacity that can be consciously developed and upgraded. But consciousness is far more flexible than we've been taught to believe. You can learn to recognize when your observer voice is running unconscious programs, and you can consciously choose to shift the quality of your observations. Not by forcing fake positivity, but by developing the ability to witness your life from expanded perspectives that naturally align with more coherent realities. This is where the practice becomes profound. It's not about controlling your thoughts. It's about upgrading your relationship with your own observational presence. Let me give you a practical example. You're facing a challenge in your life right now, something that feels stuck or difficult or overwhelming. Notice how your observer voice frames this situation. What's the story it tells? What assumptions does it make about what's possible? What emotional tone does it carry? Maybe it says things like, "This always happens to me. I never get the support I need." Things like this are too hard for someone like me. I should have figured this out by now. Other people make this look so easy. Each of these observations feels true because your observer voice has trained itself to scan for evidence that confirms these patterns. But here's what's extraordinary. These aren't objective descriptions of reality. They're creative instructions being transmitted to the quantum field. Your observer voice is constantly broadcasting these signals, and the field responds by organizing experiences that match the frequency of those transmissions. Now here's the quantum principle. Your observer voice isn't discovering the truth about your situation. It's creating the truth about your situation. The way you observe directly influences which potentials from the quantum field become actualized in your experience. This doesn't mean you ignore practical realities or pretend problems don't exist. It means you begin to understand that the quality of your observation is actively shaping how those realities unfold. When you observe from fear, you entangle your consciousness with fearful possibilities. When you observe from curiosity, you open yourself to creative solutions. When you observe from gratitude, you align with experiences that reinforce reasons to be grateful. What we've explored so far around your observer voice is just the beginning of understanding how consciousness operates as a broadcasting system. If you're ready to dive deeper into the complete framework of how your awareness transmits reality into existence, I've compiled everything into a comprehensive guide called Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It contains the full system of 9 master frequencies that transform you from unconscious seeking to conscious being, including step-by-step practices for becoming the broadcast itself rather than trying to manipulate external circumstances. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Your observer voice is constantly sending signals to the field of infinite potential, and the field responds by organizing experiences that match the frequency of those signals. This is why 2 people can face identical circumstances and have completely different experiences. They're not living in the same reality. They're living in realities shaped by the quality of their observational presence. But here's what makes this even more interesting. Your observer voice doesn't just influence your internal experience. It influences the external circumstances that show up in your life. When you consistently observe from patterns of limitation, you literally magnetize experiences that confirm those limitations. When you learn to observe from expanded awareness, you begin attracting situations that reflect that expansion. This is because consciousness and matter are not separate things. They are different frequencies of the same underlying quantum field. Your observational presence is constantly broadcasting signals into this field, and the field responds by organizing circumstances that match those signals. What you observe most consistently becomes what you experience most regularly. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle. I once worked with someone who complained that she never received recognition for her contributions at work. Every day, her observer voice would scan her environment for evidence of being overlooked, unappreciated, or ignored. My boss didn't acknowledge my presentation. My colleagues took credit for my ideas. No one notices how hard I work. What she didn't realize was that her observer voice had become so finely tuned to detect neglect that she was literally blind to acknowledgement when it occurred. A colleague would compliment her work, but her observer voice would dismiss it as just being polite. Her supervisor would include her ideas in important meetings, but her observer voice would focus on how he didn't explicitly credit her. Recognition was happening, but her observational patterns were filtering it out while amplifying anything that confirmed her story of being undervalued. More significantly, her expectation of being overlooked was influencing her behavior in subtle ways. She would present her ideas tentatively, as if expecting rejection. She would minimize her contributions in conversations, as if protecting herself from disappointment. She would avoid speaking up in meetings, as if assuming her voice wouldn't matter. These behaviors, born from her observational patterns, were actually creating the very experiences of being overlooked that her observer voice was scanning for. When she learned to recognize these patterns and began consciously upgrading her observational quality, everything shifted. Instead of scanning for evidence of neglect, she began noticing moments of support and appreciation that had always been there. Instead of observing from the assumption that her contributions didn't matter, she began observing from curiosity about how her unique perspective could serve the team. Within weeks, her external circumstances began reflecting this internal shift. Opportunities for leadership emerged. Colleagues began seeking her input. Her supervisor specifically acknowledged her strategic thinking. This wasn't magical thinking. This was quantum consciousness in action. Think about someone you know who always seems to find problems wherever they go. They're not unlucky. They're unconsciously skilled at observing from problematic frequencies. Their observer voice has been trained to scan for what's wrong, what's not working, what's threatening or disappointing, and the quantum field obliges by providing endless material for those observations. Their observer voice might sound like, "This restaurant service is terrible. Traffic is always worst when I'm running late. People these days are so inconsiderate. Technology never works when I need it to. Why does everything have to be so complicated?" Each observation feels justified because their perceptual filters are specifically attuned to detect evidence that confirms these patterns. But here's what they don't see. In the same restaurant where they notice slow service, other diners are having delightful conversations with attentive servers. In the same traffic they experience as persecution, other drivers are listening to inspiring podcasts or having meaningful phone conversations. In the same situations they find complicated, other people are discovering elegant solutions and experiencing flow. Now think about someone who seems to effortlessly attract opportunities and synchronicities. They're not just lucky. They've developed the ability to observe from frequencies that align with flow and possibility. Their observer voice has been trained to recognize potential, to see openings, to frame challenges as growth opportunities, and the field responds by organizing experiences that match that expanded observational capacity. Their internal commentary might sound like, "I wonder what this situation is trying to teach me. There's probably a perfect solution I haven't thought of yet. This delay might be protecting me from something or directing me towards something better. What if this challenge is actually preparing me for an opportunity I can't see yet?" Their observer voice maintains curiosity and openness even in difficult circumstances, which creates space for creative solutions and unexpected support to emerge. The quality of your observation literally determines the quality of your reality. Pause and breathe into that. Let that land in your body, not just your mind. This is where everything changes, because once you understand this principle, you can no longer pretend that you're a passive victim of circumstances. You begin to recognize that you're an active participant in reality creation through the medium of your own consciousness. Your observer voice becomes a tool of transformation rather than a prison of repetitive patterns. But shifting your observational patterns isn't as simple as just deciding to think different thoughts. These patterns run deep. They're embedded in your nervous system, reinforced by years or decades of repetition, entangled with your identity and your sense of safety. Real transformation happens when you learn to work with your observer voice at the quantum level, creating coherence between your conscious intentions and your unconscious observational habits. Here's where the practice becomes art. Instead of trying to control or change your observer voice, you begin to cultivate a relationship with it. You start noticing its patterns with compassion rather than judgment. You become curious about the perspectives it offers rather than automatically identifying with them. You develop the ability to witness your own witnessing, creating space between your awareness and your automatic observational reactions. When you can observe your observer voice without being completely identified with it, something profound happens. You discover that you are not your thoughts about reality. You are the consciousness that can choose which thoughts to engage with. You are not trapped by your automatic patterns of observation. You are the awareness that can consciously select how to witness your experience. This is the difference between unconscious observation and conscious observation. Unconscious observation just repeats familiar patterns, reinforcing the same realities over and over. Conscious observation recognizes that every moment offers infinite possibilities, and you have the power to choose which possibilities to focus on and amplify. Let me walk you through what this looks like practically. Right now, scan your current life situation. Notice what your observer voice automatically wants to focus on. Maybe it goes to what's not working, what you're worried about, what you wish was different. This is normal. Most observer voices have been trained to prioritize problems because our survival mechanisms are wired to scan for threats. But here's the quantum shift. Instead of judging your observer voice for its habitual patterns, simply notice them with curiosity. What if those patterns made perfect sense given your history and conditioning? What if they've actually been trying to protect you in some way? What if you could appreciate their function while also choosing to experiment with expanded perspectives? Now, from this space of compassionate awareness, gently invite your observer voice to notice something it might have overlooked. What evidence of growth exists in your current situation? What opportunities for learning or expansion are present? What support systems or resources are available? What aspects of your experience deserve recognition or gratitude? You're not forcing fake positivity. You're not denying genuine challenges. You're expanding the range of your observational capacity, training your consciousness to perceive from multiple dimensions simultaneously. You're developing quantum vision, the ability to see both what is and what could be, both the challenges and the possibilities, both the current reality and the emerging potential. This is consciousness training at its most sophisticated level. You're literally upgrading your perceptual software, expanding your ability to detect frequencies of experience that were always there, but outside your previous observational range. As you practice this expanded observation, something magical begins to happen. The external circumstances of your life start to shift in ways that match your upgraded perceptual capacity. Opportunities that were always there become visible. Solutions that were always available become obvious. People and resources that align with your expanded vision begin to appear with increasing frequency. This isn't wishful thinking or magical thinking. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness development. When you change the quality of your observation, you literally change the information your nervous system receives from the environment. When your nervous system receives different information, it makes different decisions. When you make different decisions, you take different actions. When you take different actions, you generate different results. But the process goes even deeper than this. Your observational presence broadcasts signals into the quantum field that influence how circumstances organize themselves around you. Other people unconsciously respond to the frequency you're emanating through your observational quality. Synchronicities align with the coherence of your expanded awareness. The universe literally rearranges itself to match the reality you're observing into existence. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I am upgrading my observer voice to create reality from expanded awareness. This isn't just a casual comment. This is an energetic declaration, a signal to the quantum field that you're choosing to engage with this material at a transformational level rather than just consuming it as information. Now let's go deeper into the mechanics of how this actually works. Your observer voice operates through language, and language is not neutral. Every word carries vibrational frequency. Every phrase creates energetic patterns. Every story generates electromagnetic fields that interact with the quantum vacuum. When you habitually use language that reinforces limitation, lack, fear, or victimhood, you're literally programming your nervous system and the field around you to manifest experiences that match those frequencies. But when you learn to use language consciously, as a tool of quantum creation, everything shifts. This isn't about positive affirmations or repeating phrases you don't believe. This is about developing the ability to observe and describe your reality in ways that naturally align with expanded possibilities while remaining grounded in authentic truth. For example, instead of saying, "I never have enough money," you might say, "I'm developing a more abundant relationship with resources." Instead of, "This always happens to me," you might say, "I'm learning to navigate this pattern differently." Instead of, "I'm stuck," you might say, "I'm in a transition phase that's preparing me for something I can't see yet." Notice how these upgraded observations don't deny the current reality, but they frame it in a way that maintains openness to transformation. They acknowledge what is while simultaneously creating space for what could be. They honor your experience while elevating your perspective. This is the art of conscious observation, using your awareness and your language to create coherent bridge frequencies between your current reality and your emerging potential. You're not lying to yourself or forcing positivity. You're expanding your capacity to perceive and describe reality from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. If this exploration is opening new pathways of understanding for you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to stay connected with these consciousness-expanding perspectives. Your observer voice becomes a tuning fork, helping you find the frequencies that naturally align with growth, flow, creativity, and expansion. The more you practice observing from these elevated perspectives, the more your external reality begins to reorganize itself around those frequencies. But here's something crucial that most people miss. This work isn't just about changing your personal reality. When you upgrade your observational capacity, you're contributing to the collective field of human consciousness. Your expanded awareness becomes available to others through morphic resonance and quantum entanglement. You become a node of coherent observation in a world that desperately needs more people who can see beyond the limitations of consensual reality. But here's something crucial that most people miss. This work isn't just about changing your personal reality. When you upgrade your observational capacity, you're contributing to the collective field of human consciousness. Your expanded awareness becomes available to others through morphic resonance and quantum entanglement. You become a node of coherent observation in a world that desperately needs more people who can see beyond the limitations of consensual reality. This is why this work matters beyond your personal transformation. Every time you choose conscious observation over unconscious reaction, you're helping to create new templates of possibility in the collective field. Every time you observe from expanded awareness instead of contracted fear, you're making it easier for others to access those same frequencies. You're not just changing your own reality, you're participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. Think about the people in your life who seem to naturally see possibilities where others see problems, who maintain hope in challenging situations, who approach difficulties with curiosity rather than despair. They're not just optimistic personalities. They're individuals who have developed sophisticated observational skills. They've trained their consciousness to detect and amplify frequencies of experience that support growth and transformation. You can develop these same capacities. Your observer voice is not fixed. It's not determined by your past, or your personality, or your circumstances. It's a skill that can be refined, an instrument that can be tuned, a capacity that can be expanded through conscious practice and intention. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their observer voice through force rather than finesse. They attempt to control their thoughts or suppress negative observations rather than developing a more sophisticated relationship with their own awareness. This creates internal conflict and usually reinforces the very patterns they're trying to change. Real transformation happens when you learn to work with your observer voice at the quantum level, creating coherence between your conscious intentions and your unconscious observational habits. This requires understanding that your observer voice isn't your enemy. It's a creative instrument that's been programmed by your past experiences and survival mechanisms. Your observer voice developed its current patterns for good reasons. If it scans for threats, it's because you've experienced situations where vigilance was necessary for safety. If it looks for evidence of rejection, it's because you've learned to protect yourself from the pain of unexpected abandonment. If it assumes scarcity, it's because you've experienced situations where resources were genuinely limited. The goal isn't to override these protective mechanisms. It's to expand your observational range so that you can perceive both potential threats and potential opportunities, both genuine limitations and emerging possibilities, both what needs protection and what deserves trust. Let me share with you a specific practice that can accelerate this transformation. For the next week, I want you to conduct an experiment 3 times each day, morning, afternoon, and evening. Pause and consciously observe your current experience. But instead of just noticing what's happening, practice observing from 3 different perspectives simultaneously. First, observe from the perspective of gratitude. What in your current experience deserves appreciation? What evidence of support, growth, beauty, or possibility exists in this moment? Train your attention to detect frequencies of blessing and abundance that are always present, but often overlooked. Second, observe from the perspective of curiosity. What is this experience trying to teach you? What opportunities for learning or expansion does it contain? What would become possible if you approached this situation with fascination rather than judgment? Allow your awareness to explore dimensions of your experience that you might normally ignore. Third, observe from the perspective of creative potential. If you knew that your current circumstances were perfectly designed to prepare you for your next level of growth and contribution, how would you engage with them differently? What hidden gifts or capabilities might these experiences be developing within you? This practice isn't about forcing yourself to see things in unrealistic ways. It's about developing the flexibility to observe your reality from multiple dimensions. Recognizing that every situation contains layers of meaning and possibility that become accessible when you expand your perceptual range. As you practice this multidimensional observation, pay attention to how it affects not just your internal experience, but the external responses you receive from the world around you. Notice how other people interact with you differently when you're observing from expanded awareness. Notice how opportunities and synchronicities begin to align with your upgraded observational frequency. This is quantum observation in action. You're not just passively witnessing reality. You're actively participating in determining which aspects of infinite potential become actualized in your experience. If this resonates with something deep inside you, if you can feel truth activating in your body as we explore these concepts together, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency. This isn't about consuming content. This is about joining a community of consciousness that's committed to creating reality from expanded awareness rather than unconscious limitation. When you subscribe, you're signaling to the field that you're ready to engage with these principles at a transformational level. You're choosing to surround yourself with perspectives and practices that support your continued evolution. You're aligning with others who understand that consciousness development is the most important work happening on this planet right now. Now let's explore how your observer voice interacts with time and possibility. Most people's observer voice operates primarily in linear time, constantly referencing the past to predict the future. This is how things always go for me, based on what happened before, I expect. I've tried this type of thing, and it never works. This temporal framework creates a closed loop where past experiences define future possibilities, severely limiting the range of realities that can emerge. But quantum consciousness operates outside linear time. In the quantum field, all possibilities exist simultaneously in an eternal now, and your observational presence determines which possibilities collapse into actualized experience. When you learn to observe from this quantum temporal perspective, you gain access to potential futures that have no relationship to your past patterns. Your observer voice can be trained to perceive from what I call possibility time, rather than history time. Instead of asking, "What happened before in similar situations?" you begin asking, "What wants to emerge through this situation?" Instead of, "What should I expect based on my past?" You explore, "What becomes possible when I observe from fresh awareness?" I'm curious. Have you noticed moments in your life when shifting how you observed a situation actually changed the situation itself? Drop a comment sharing a time when changing your perspective transformed your experience in unexpected ways. This shift from historical observation to possibility observation is one of the most powerful transformations you can make. When your observer voice begins to operate from possibility time, you literally step outside the deterministic loop that most people live within. You begin to experience reality as endlessly creative rather than predictably repetitive. Think about a challenge you're currently facing. Notice how your observer voice naturally wants to frame this challenge based on similar past experiences. It wants to predict outcomes based on historical patterns. It wants to approach the situation with strategies that made sense in previous contexts. Now experiment with observing this same challenge from possibility time. What if this situation is unlike anything you've experienced before? even if it looks similar on the surface? What if the solutions that want to emerge are completely outside your previous experience? What if approaching this challenge with fresh awareness could generate results that have no precedent in your personal history? This isn't naive optimism. This is quantum realism. In a universe where consciousness participates in creating reality, your willingness to observe beyond the limitations of historical patterns literally opens doorways to unprecedented possibilities. Your observer voice becomes a time-traveling instrument, capable of tuning into potential futures and drawing them into present-moment manifestation. But this requires developing comfort with uncertainty, with not knowing, with allowing reality to be more creative and mysterious than your past experience suggests is possible. Most people's observer voice has been trained to seek security through predictability. It wants to know what to expect, how things will unfold, what the outcome will be. But quantum observation requires embracing what mystics have always called not knowing mind. The willingness to remain open to realities that exceed your capacity to predict or control. When you observe from not knowing mind, you create space for the universe to surprise you. You allow circumstances to organize themselves in ways that surpass your limited human planning. You step into partnership with intelligence that operates beyond the scope of your individual consciousness. This is where your observer voice transforms from a mechanism of control into an instrument of surrender. Not passive surrender, but conscious surrender. The recognition that reality is far more creative and supportive than your personal mind could ever orchestrate on its own. Let me share something that might shift everything for you. Your observer voice doesn't just influence your individual reality, it influences collective reality. We live in a field of shared consciousness, and every observation you make contributes to the pool of collective possibility or limitation. When you observe from fear, lack, separation, or victimhood, you're adding those frequencies to the collective field, making it easier for others to tune in to similar experiences. When you observe from love, abundance, unity, and creative empowerment, you're contributing those frequencies to the field, making it easier for others to access expanded realities. This means your personal consciousness work is actually planetary service. Every time you choose conscious observation over unconscious reaction, you're helping to upgrade the operating system of human awareness. Every time you observe beyond limitation into possibility, you're creating new pathways in the collective field that others can follow. Your observer voice becomes an instrument of collective evolution. You're not just transforming your own life, you're participating in the transformation of human consciousness itself. This recognition can add profound meaning and motivation to your practice, knowing that your internal shifts ripple outward in ways you may never fully comprehend. But it also adds responsibility. When you understand that your observational choices affect not just your personal reality, but the collective field of human experience, you begin to approach your consciousness with greater reverence and intention. You recognize that every moment offers an opportunity to contribute to collective healing or collective limitation. This is the deeper invitation of conscious observation. It's not just about creating a better personal life, although that naturally happens. It's about becoming a conscious participant in the evolution of reality itself, using your awareness as an instrument of transformation that serves something larger than your individual desires. As we approach the integration phase of our exploration, I want you to feel into what this recognition awakens in your body. You are not a passive observer of a predetermined reality. You are an active participant in an endlessly creative universe, And your consciousness is one of the primary instruments through which that creativity expresses itself. Your observer voice has been unconsciously shaping your reality for your entire life. Now you have the opportunity to engage with this creative force consciously, intentionally, and in service of your highest evolution and the evolution of consciousness itself. This is where everything becomes practice. Theoretical understanding is beautiful, but transformation happens through embodied integration. Your observer voice will only upgrade through consistent, conscious engagement with these principles in the laboratory of your daily life. Here's your integration practice for the coming weeks. Begin each day by consciously setting the frequency of your observer voice. Before you engage with external circumstances, take a few minutes to tune your awareness to the qualities you want to embody and create. You might say something like, "Today my observer voice operates from curiosity rather than judgment, from possibility rather than limitation, from love rather than fear. I observe my reality through the lens of growth, creativity, and expanded potential. My awareness is a gift to the collective field of consciousness." Throughout the day, whenever you notice your observer voice running unconscious programs, complaining, worrying, comparing, criticizing, predicting problems, simply pause and ask, "How could I observe this situation from expanded awareness? What perspective would serve my highest evolution and the highest good of all involved?" This isn't about perfection. Your observer voice has decades of conditioning to work through. This is about developing the capacity to recognize when you're observing from contracted awareness and gently redirecting toward expanded possibilities. Every time you make this conscious choice, you're rewiring your neural patterns and upgrading your reality creation capabilities. At the end of each day, reflect on moments when you successfully shifted your observational perspective. What did you notice? How did external circumstances respond to your upgraded awareness? What evidence of transformation appeared in your experience? This practice transforms your daily life into a laboratory for consciousness development. Every situation becomes an opportunity to strengthen your observational flexibility. Every challenge becomes a chance to demonstrate your growing mastery of conscious reality creation. Consider watching this video each morning for the next week to reinforce these quantum principles in your awareness and set the frequency for conscious observation throughout your day. And if you know someone who's ready to understand how their consciousness shapes their reality, share this with them. When you transmit these concepts to others, you're not just helping them expand their awareness. You're reinforcing your own understanding and creating ripples of elevated consciousness that accelerate transformation for everyone involved. Remember, you're not trying to control your reality through your observer voice. You're learning to dance with reality by offering the highest quality of observational presence you can access in each moment. The universe responds to this offering by organizing experiences that match and support your expanded awareness. Your observer voice becomes a bridge between your current reality and your emerging potential, a tuning fork that helps you find harmony with frequencies of experience that serve your deepest growth and highest contribution. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. For weeks or months, you practice observing from expanded awareness without dramatic external changes. Then one day, you realize that your entire life has reorganized itself around new possibilities. Opportunities that once seemed impossible have become natural. Relationships that once felt stuck have transformed. Creative solutions have emerged for challenges that once felt overwhelming. This is the magic of conscious observation. It works beneath the surface of ordinary awareness, creating shifts at the quantum level that eventually manifest as transformed external circumstances. Your patience and persistence with this practice will be rewarded in ways that exceed your current capacity to imagine. But the greatest reward isn't external transformation, profound as that may be. The greatest reward is discovering that you are not a victim of circumstances. You are a creative force in an intelligent universe that responds to the quality of your consciousness, with opportunities for endless evolution and contribution. Take a moment now to drop one word in the comments that captures the energy or intention you're choosing as you step into conscious observation. This isn't just a casual interaction. This is your energetic signature to the quantum field, a declaration of how you're choosing to participate in reality creation from this moment forward. Your single word becomes a seed in the collective field, joining with the intentions of others who are committed to conscious evolution. Together, our expanded observations create new templates of possibility that make it easier for consciousness to continue awakening throughout our planet. As we complete this exploration, I invite you to subscribe not just to stay connected to this content, but to stay coherent with the frequency of conscious observation. When you subscribe, you're choosing to surround yourself with perspectives and practices that support your continued evolution into your highest potential. The more of us who embody conscious observation, the more the world reflects the truth of our infinite creative capacity. Your commitment to this practice is not just personal transformation, it's participation in the greatest transformation our species has ever undertaken. Your observer voice is waiting to become an instrument of magic. Your consciousness is ready to become a force of healing and creation. The universe is prepared to surprise you with possibilities that exceed your wildest dreams. Everything changes when you recognize that you are not observing reality. You are reality observing itself, and you have conscious choice about how that observation unfolds. The quantum field is listening. Your next observation is already beginning to shape your next experience. Choose consciously, observe expansively, create magnificently. Welcome to the practice of quantum observation, where your awareness becomes your most powerful tool for transforming yourself and the world. Now, understanding how your observer voice creates reality naturally leads to exploring how reality itself functions as a mirror, reflecting your internal state back to you. In the observer mirror, reality reflects how you see yourself. We dive deeper into this quantum principle, revealing how your self-perception literally programs what the universe shows you about yourself, and how mastering this reflection transforms every relationship and circumstance in your life.